Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Cycle Jerks Podcast, episode 104. I'm joined today, as always, by Dave Dalton. How you doing,
Wow,
Dave?
good to see you. Good to see you again, Mike.
Yeah.
It's been a long time.
Yeah, yeah, we recorded one yesterday too, so we're getting our fill of each other.
Yeah.
Today's guest, we're going to be joined by riding buddies that have rode across America, mostly self-supported. Chris Dittmore and Matt Swinnerton, and then yeah, they had such a good time. I guess they went from the Canadian border down to through into Mexico through California. So yeah, they've had some great adventures on the bikes, and we're gonna talk to them about it.
Yeah. I think it'd be a great story. They're local. I think Chris is in Tennessee now, but they're local boys.
Okay.
And every year they did the Tour de Tahoe, which they would just organize this kind of, you know, ride around. They had a house up in Tahoe and they'd ride around it. Somehow out of that came riding across the US. So I've known him for a long time, so should be a pretty interesting story.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I've always kind of
And
had that in the back of my mind of doing something like that. I had a buddy of mine that was going to ride to all of the baseball parks um, in America, and
oh,
he was going to take a year, and he was going to, basically ride all across the country, visit the parks, and his idea was to he would get postcards. He was trying to get sponsors, people that would invest in him, and
okay,
then he would send a postcard to everybody that from each ballpark as he would do these trips. That was his idea. It never came to be, but I thought it was a pretty cool idea. You know,
oh, it was a great idea.
yeah,
Postcard. How long ago was that?
it was a long time ago. Yeah,
Yeah,
maybe 30 years ago.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, so since he kind of put that in my head, I always kind of had that idea of like maybe riding across country, and it'd be really, really cool. And of course, race across America, you know.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
as a matter of fact, Race Across America is what got me thinking about this. That there's this kind of, there may be another guest I'm trying to get on too. Hopefully, it won't get too repetitive, but I think there's a progression, right? You have the Race Across America, and they have their own challenge, right? Which is
Yeah.
they're just hammering to be first, but they're supported, right? I mean, if you need be, you climb in a van, you take a nap, somebody gives you food, right? You have a
Yeah.
mechanical, boom. These guys, they were together, right? But on their own. Then you go one step further. I met a guy that came in the shop, and he rode across the U.S. completely by himself, and his wife met him like once in Chicago or someplace like halfway in the Midwest,
Yeah.
and gave him a new kit, and then he went on his own, right? So he was fully loaded up, right? And so
Wow.
you want to talk you want to talk about so I don't know, in my simple brain I see this kind of logic progression from self-supported to, hey, at least we've got each other, to I'm out here all by myself, right? So
Right. Right. I was gonna say, doesn't sound like a very good relationship with his wife.
yeah, yeah.
She's gonna let him go for
Yeah,
however
I know,
long that takes and just give
I
him
know.
one kit.
Yeah, but it was a tribute to his dad, who had done it a few years
Wow.
prior,
That's cool.
prior, so it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
But speaking of out there on your own, did you watch Marie's? Uh,
Yes. Yes. The chasing Marie Soleil Blaze, a two-time former guest. She chronicled the Tour Divide race that she did, and I think she did a great job with it. Yeah, what a crazy race. 20 straight days.
yeah,
She
what
did
was it going?
it was 20 straight days that she did, and she said she averaged 226K a day. So that's 140 miles of off-roading every single day for 20 days.
Yeah, yeah,
That's gnarly. I can't remember
yeah,
hard.
and um, so it's on YouTube, right?
Yeah.
Chasing,
Yep.
yeah. So folks,
You really have to
I
type it in. Because if you
Yeah.
type in chasing, it doesn't come up. I chased in chasing a tour, it still didn't come up. You got to type in chasing a tour divide, and then it finally
Yeah.
comes up. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it's definitely well worth the time and the investment. If you're ever wondering about your mental fortitude to push on, that's kind of, I mean, you could tell there was one moment she was just sitting there, saying, talking and telling what was going on, and she just broke down in tears,
Yep.
but then she just said, I got to get going. Right.
Right.
And you talk about the terrain. I remember that one, like, I forget the name of the hill because I was going to email her about it, but it was like on day one,
I know.
day
So
one,
terrible.
and she had to push her bike all the way up the hill. It was unrideable. I don't care. She had a mountain bike, but it was just rocks. I'm like, I think
Yeah.
I'd have given up that. I think I'd have given up on that day. You know?
Well, one of my favorite parts of the the documentary was there's a point near the end where there were a couple salient, really poignant moments in the doc. What one was when she was acknowledging that she had given up her road career, this opportunity, and she had given up on a dream, and it hit her, and she was crying and talking about it. I could really relate to that because she's conflicted. So for 20 years she's pursued this thing, and
Yeah.
now she's getting called by the trail to do this other thing, and but it still hurts to let go of a dream. And anyway, so that was
Yeah, because she
that.
said at some point during it, she said, "I should be right now. I should be at this." Right. I mean, because she told the team, I'm not going. This is my
Right.
calling now."
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then the other one, when she's near the end and she says, I did this to find my breaking point. And she's like, right, she's like, I found it. I found it,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I think anybody that's ever, I've had a couple moments like that, where I just felt like, okay, this is it. I've broken. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's humbling when that happens to you. But
Uh, The
yeah.
one, yeah, that I know you want to talk about CX Worlds too, but the one and then we got to plug Lean, um, our sponsor. Um,
You want to get the name right, Dave.
yeah, I know. But uh, Lean Athlete Strength, but it's early.
Yeah,
But there was another time at which I think she kind of resigned herself to the fact that, like, she had a goal, like, I'm hoping to be, you know, third or something. And then at some point she said, I I'm resigned. She resigned to her place and she says, I'm just going to enjoy the last like 75K. And it was so gorgeous
right.
that I can't, I can't help but to think you have to look back on that and go, okay, I want to go do it again, but I just want to go and take in the scenery, because it was incredible scenery, and so
Yeah, but
I
20
don't know,
straight days,
well worth,
20
yeah,
straight days, it's kind of like, meh,
yeah,
especially if you're smoked
yeah.
physically,
Another mountain lion. Oh well,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, it
So,
was it was great. I really enjoyed it. I think I would have enjoyed it even if we hadn't had Marie on. That's how good it
mhm.
was. But it was kind of a little extra special just knowing her, her backstory and everything about her. I feel connected to her, and then
Yeah,
to see the doc, it was just really, really cool.
yeah. I hope I didn't overstep at all, but she mentioned how bad do you want it? So I took the liberty of introducing her to Matt on social media and just said, hey, I watched the video, great thing, great shout out to how bad do you want it? You really should talk to Matt Fitzgerald. I mean, she in how bad do you want it number two,
Right.
volume two, she should be in there,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. All right. So let's talk about CX World. Um, I mean, yeah, yeah. So Vanderpool uh dominates dominates the event for his sixth world title in cyclocross. And and then also on the women's side, Fem, excuse me, Fen Van Empel, she won for the second straight year. So the Dutch dominate the
What?
world.
So I got some time on my hands. Where do I watch it?
So I don't know if you can watch it on Cycling News. I think you can get the clips on YouTube, but I don't
Okay.
think the whole race might be up on YouTube. I couldn't find the whole race. I just got the clips.
Oh,
But
all right.
between the two of them, they won like 29 of the 32 cyclocross uh races this year. Between Vanderpool and Van Empel. I mean, we're talking complete domination by both of them.
Yeah, yeah,
And Vanderpool says there's speculation that this might be Vanderpool's last because he's wants to focus. He's talking about focusing more on road. Um, but I don't know. We'll see. As the season comes to a close, his mindset shifting to road. We'll see what
yeah.
happens next season.
Yeah, I wondered, I don't know, this is just without evidence. I just kind of wondered, so much focus had been on Wout van Aert and, his dominance and how strong he was on the road. And it just seemed like Vanderpool wasn't quite the road guy that Wout van Aert was. And I thought,
Well,
well, has his, and then all of a sudden he comes back and just dominates the cross
yeah.
season, right?
Well, Vanderpool was coming off an injury. Remember, he wrecked at the Olympics, and I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
you
yeah,
have
yeah,
to remember. I mean, he was in yellow in the tour, left the tour to race the mountain bike in the Olympics. Then he crashes, blows up his back, and so like he was on a, you know, he wasn't himself for a big chunk
yeah.
of his comeback, and then it seemed like even with the success of the team and Jasper, he was Jasper's point man
Right, right.
in the tour last year, and Jasper had an um, amazing success. But the I think I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see where it shakes out this year because obviously he's got great form now, and when he's right, I mean, just
Yeah,
one of the best
yeah,
there is. So
yeah.
um, yeah,
And then we said goodbye to Steve. Zanuck Stebar retired, right? This was his
yeah,
last season.
yep.
Yeah,
And then the other thing that happened on the World Tour stage was Simon Yates. He won the Tour of Alula.
yeah,
Yeah, which is
yeah,
kind of cool because Alula is a sponsor of their team, Jaco Alula. So yeah, it's cool to see him get a victory. And it was like in the final climb, um, he was 3 seconds behind the leader. He and it was like a sprint finish, and he ended up winning it and got 10 seconds, 10-second bonus. The leader got third. He got a 4-second bonus, and so he ended up winning by 3 seconds.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's incredible. I like those two brothers. I mean
Oh yeah.
I think they're great. I think they're great in itself, but as support riders and that kind of thing, and I'm always rooting for the support rider, but I think they do a great job. I was a little surprised in the tour down under when they came to the big climb. Everyone has expected him to come back and that to dominate again, and
Yep.
he didn't.
Right.
And I was like, oh man! So I was really excited to see that he had won that one. So
Yeah. 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 Well, you never know. When I mean, we saw it last year in the tour with Remco.
yeah,
I mean, there's just days. Some days you have it. I mean, those guys are so finely tuned that most days they have it, but every
yeah.
once in a while, it's just not there. But
So
yeah,
just say it, Mike. Was he on a propel?
yes, he was.
Ah,
Go figure.
I'm 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 glad my TCR is outside of range and can't hear me. I love my TCR, but
Yep.
That Propel. Don't tell me it's not a climbing bike.
Oh,
Don't
right.
tell me it.
It's a one bike to slay them all.
Yeah,
That's what it is.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
So,
So
all right, let's talk about lean athlete strength.
yeah,
And
lean athlete strength. So I'll post it later. So this is kind of it, but she had posted a video, which like she had a post, and it was just kind of struck me. Like she gets me, right? Like I don't know
Mhm.
about you, and I think most uh, hardcore cyclists, we go away for something. We have to do a trip, and it's like, oh, what am I going to do? I'm off the bike. I need to work out. I just need to work out, like you know. And she posted this video, and I'll post it. But I think she just gets us right. And I've
Mhm.
always said it's about she understands endurance athletes. Well, this was called a total body shred. If you're traveling and don't have like you're in a hotel that doesn't have a gym, or doesn't have a or has a shitty gym, or
Mhm.
maybe you've just got two little dumbbells. So she had this 20-minute workout where you do these squats, you do these mountain climbers, you do this bench curl, this curl, military press thing. So 20-minute workout if you're traveling, total body shred. So it was pretty cool. I mean, I didn't do it. She sent me the video last night. So but I'll post it. But it's on YouTube under, I think it's under Dara Sport. But look up lean athlete strength, and it's just something to keep in mind, because it's all going to happen to all of us, right? We
Yep.
got to go to a wedding. We've got to, or it's pouring rain and we don't want to get back on the trainer. What can I do to do something?
Yeah.
um,
I
so
struggle with that when I travel. I have a hard time getting motivated for, ironically, riding an exercise bike or doing some treadmill stuff or anything like that.
no,
Yeah,
exactly.
I always
And
struggle.
this is, and that's the thing, right? I always say, okay, this is good that I'm traveling because it forces me to rest. And that works for a day, but then I'm bored and I want to do something. And this is a 20-minute right in your hotel room, just knock it out.
Yeah. All
So
right. Well, check it out. Lean Athlete Strength. She's got a
way
bunch
to,
of free content, and then also some options for you if you want to get
yeah,
a little bit more serious about it.
way to go, Dara.
Yeah.
So
All right. Hey, we're joined by one of our two guests today, Matt Swinnerton. Matt, it's good to meet you.
Good morning. How are you doing?
Doing good. What is that behind you there? That's
That
pretty
is Mount
spectacular.
Shasta. That is
Oh
Mount
yeah.
Shasta on the way back from coming back from Bend, Oregon to Northern California. So yeah,
so are you in your car? You in your car and looking out the window? That's what or
that's
you
what yeah, that's what I wish it
oh
was. I'm actually in Bend, Oregon. I'm visiting my mom and dad lived up here. My dad passed away in 2019, but I'm up here visiting my mom, and my brothers are up here to have a little fun, do a little skiing, and I love
Okay.
Mount Shasta. It's a spectacular place. So
It really
yeah.
is. Yeah. As an outside rep, I actually serviced Mount Shasta. I had a dealer in Shasta.
oh, you
Uh,
did?
yeah, the fifth season they're called. And
Nice.
yeah, so I spent a fair amount of time riding around Mount Shasta and up as high as I could get. It's always weather
Yeah,
dependent.
they have some incredible mountain bike trail systems up there now. I mean,
Yeah.
just I just did the Grinduro up there last year and fell in love with the town of Mount Shasta and the riding. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm embarrassed to say I've never been.
Yeah. Well,
Oh,
you should be
Dave.
Yeah,
embarrassed. Yeah.
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 All right. And now we're joined by the second guest today, Chris Dittmore. Chris, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too, Mike.
Yeah. All
Hey,
right.
Chris,
Hey, Dave. Hey, Matt.
how are you?
Just fine. Thank you.
Yeah.
Are you in Tennessee?
Yes, I'm in Nashville right now.
Okay.
Out here with the grandson.
And
Oh,
and
Nice.
okay.
what you can only get a glimpse of is over Chris's right shoulder, I guess that
Yeah.
is there's actually a painting of the United States map with his trip
Oh,
across the country. Is that epic or
yeah.
what?
That is cool. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Whoa, wait. You said it's the route that you guys took across the.
Yeah, so there's both routes on here. There's the route across the country, and then way over here on the West Coast is the route.
Yeah.
So in 2018, we rode from Canada to Mexico down the coast.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was telling Mike about that. So you didn't just do that for this podcast, right? That's something that,
No.
He hasn't slept in 4 days. He's
Yeah. No.
I'll bet you cram for final exams in college too,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Right.
Yeah. Well, Dave and I were talking before you guys got on about just the concept of riding across the country. It's something that I've thought about, never done, and we've had Ram participants on the show in the past, and that's another thing. Like maybe I end up doing it that way. I don't know. That would be really cool to do, but that's totally different than what you guys did. You know, you for the most part, you self-supported yourself all the way across. Is that right?
Well,
Depends how you define self-support.
Right.
If you define self-support as a sag wagon with friends and family, then you bet.
Oh,
Right, yeah.
okay.
Oh, did they follow you the whole way?
Yeah.
They did.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
They did.
And so
All
were
right.
you staying in hotels or camping? This is
We stayed in hotels. We
Yes,
had a
yes.
fresh shower every night. And,
Okay, well,
and
Matt,
something good to
let's
eat.
qualify that. I wouldn't, let's say motels more like
Oh yeah,
Super 8 was our friend. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
right. I do have friends who think a Super 8 is a form of camping. So
Yeah. Well, see, that really works.
Okay.
That works more for my mindset. Like I can't ever see myself sleeping. I'm doing something so extreme and then also being extreme with just your rest.
Yeah.
I would need to get a hotel and a shower and a reboot, for these epic days, ahead. And yeah, so yeah, that totally that is something I could see myself doing.
Yeah, because
We-
guys, I was telling. I'm sorry to cut you off, Matt, but I was telling him that there was another guy that launched from the West Coast and rode across the East, rode cross country to honor his father. This guy was totally loaded up, and so I got it wrong. I thought you guys had just periodically, your wives had joined you at certain spots to come along, but this guy went totally on his own. His wife met him midway to give him a new kit, right? And then she left him, and then he went and rode himself. He had saddlebags that were loaded with tents and gear and whatever else he needed, but otherwise totally self-supported. I couldn't do that. I think I could do what you guys did. So
I'll tell you what, there's a great in between actually. My wife and I 2 years ago rode the Eurovelo network over in France and Germany and Amsterdam, and we carried our own gear, but we stayed in like bed and breakfast and motel and little hostels and stuff in Europe. So we carried our own gear, but we didn't camp. And that's a big, like when we were in Europe, I saw a lot of people with e-bikes with camping gear and stoves and food because you got to haul so much more.
Yeah.
So there's kind of like there's so many different ways to do it, right? Another way to do it like Matt and I did, which was great. And we had a car, and we had beer and wine and food and motel rooms, and then anyway. So
let's rewind because so I just in the interest of full disclosure, I started mountain biking with you guys. God, I'm sorry, Mike, but it was a Trek 6500. So I don't know, it was marginally a mountain bike. And that's how I met you guys. And then you, for years, would do this ride around Lake Tahoe.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Every year, big deal. Come up to Chris's cabin, food, again, supported in the whole bit. Where did this idea of riding across the country come about? Because I know you talked about it for years.
Matt's dad.
No kidding.
Yeah. I mean, my dad rode across the country in 1994. I think that's right.
Wow.
And and so he and I actually rode. My wife and I rode a section of the trip with him when he was up in Wisconsin, and so we did a week of that trip, and I was like, I want to do this someday. You know, it was just he did it with two buddies right after they retired. My mom was his saddle wagon. This was pre GPS, pre cell phone. So they camped some, they stayed in hotels some. But yeah, that idea was the inspiration. And then Chris and I started riding together when our kids were in kindergarten. And so we'd get up at 5:45 in the morning. We'd go, do a loop, end up at Pete's Coffee, have a chance to talk a lot. And we both like had this idea that riding across the country would be really cool. And then we started kind of hatching ideas like, well, actually we could do this. And when could we do it? Right. And then we just found this moment in time where our kids were both all in college, and then we both engineered work so that we could make it happen. And
what year was it that you did it?
2012. Yeah.
And I would say talking with Matt's dad and Matt's mom really convinced me not to camp.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So
his dad would have stories about, you say, I think, Mike, you kind of described, I've ridden 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, whatever in a day, and they would roll into town, and sometimes I have to go to this campsite, and they were just, and sometimes Matt's mom, Marianne, had found a motel room, and so they'd hit town not knowing what they were going to do.
Oh, no.
Depending upon what Marianne could find, and they were like deflated when it was camping, and ecstatic when it was a motel room.
Yep. Makes perfect sense to me anyway.
Yeah.
So how long does it take? How long did it take you guys from beginning a trip all the way to the end of the trip?
It was 60 days for the route that we chose. I'd say, I mean, you'll find people who will do it in as quickly as a month, because we took, the shortest route's just under 3,000 miles if you go from Southern California across to the Carolinas. But we went from San Francisco and then went north up through, Tahoe, Yellowstone, and then across, and then Lake Erie up to Niagara Falls, and finished in Boston.
Well, then we dropped down in Iowa to do Ragbri.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So we had this kind of jigsaw, because we're like, okay, if we're going to do this, there's things we want to see. Like, we really wanted to go through Yellowstone.
Yeah.
We really wanted to do Ragbri, as an example. We wanted to go to Niagara Falls, and it was important to us then in Revere Beach in Boston, where Matt's dad had ended.
Yeah. And we had some highlights like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and a Cubs game at Wrigley Field. And, so we had some dear friends who had a home in Indiana who hosted us for a couple of days on a lake there. So
nice.
Yeah. So all of those things kind of inspired the route.
Hey, Mike, I'm sorry to have them on as guests. I really thought they roughed it, but here they are.
Yeah,
They were going to be our inspiration, but they're going to the Hall of Fame, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and sitting on a lake drinking wine and beer.
Dave,
I'll tell you what, at the start of the trip,
that should be aspirational for sure.
Mostly we rode back roads, mostly, but to get across Nevada, there's two choices: Highway 50 or Highway 80. And we chose Highway 80 because we wanted to go up to Yellowstone. And riding on Highway 80 is, I would say, in the whole trip, I forget what the stats were, but it was something like the whole trip, we had 11 flat tires. 10 of them were on Highway 80 in Nevada.
Oh, wow.
Because all that little metal from the radial tires.
Of the trucks, yeah.
But conversely, the truck drivers were so cool. They would see us, and it's a big shoulder on Highway 80. They would always get over in the fast lane because they knew they could drive. So we were, anyway. Yeah. But during Highway 80, it was like, oh man, what have we done? And then once we got off of Highway 80 and we're off into nature and the beauty and the back roads and the small towns, it was spectacular.
Right.
Yeah. That's so cool.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, you guys mixed in Ragbri, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, a Cubs game, all these things. I mean, I could just see how much more meaningful they are because of the whole trip, right?
Yeah.
Like I've been to Wrigley Field and it was awesome. and it was a cool thing to do, but it was nothing like riding my bike to Wrigley Field, in the middle of this epic cross country trip. And oh man, that just that's cool. I mean, that's the way to take 60 days, like to your point, where you could do it in 30, but why do it in 30? Take 60, do the things that are important to you, Niagara Falls, etc. That's awesome, man.
Yeah, it
Very,
was.
That's I think I concur, Mike. I think if the goal is to get across the country, and so you do it in 30 days, right? Like, oh, okay. So you're sitting there celebrating and you're jumping up and down. All of a sudden you go, ah, shit, but I could have, I'll never get to do this again. And I could have stopped here and I could have stopped there, right? So if you're going to do it the way you guys do it, I think, right?
It was a little bit like, instead of just riding across the country, it was really trying to experience America on a bike, and then riding across the country as well. And just having the time to be able to meet some people, experience some things, and to have it not just be an incredibly a cool accomplishment, but to have it be a joyful experience. And I got to tell you, man, there was one or two days that were harder than the others, but man, every day was just incredible. So it was fun to have an experience like that. And then and then Chris had the idea of doing a blog that we that was probably the hardest part of the trip, was like doing the daily blog, because Chris was incredible with being able to. We finished the thing and he'd get on it, and then we had all these people following us, from work and all this kind of thing. So we had a shared experience with family, friends, coworkers, and all that sort of stuff. That was just really cool.
Yeah.
We had so many people from work, in particular, for both Matt and I, who allowed us to do this. It's not easy to take a job and just leave for 60 days. And so I would say, or work in our family, but even more work, it was like the blog was a way to kind of thank them for letting us do this, and they could follow it and be a part of it. And so it was great. And you guys have cycled enough to know too, so Matt and I are cycling together for 60 days. There's days that, like, man, I'm feeling awesome and Matt is not, and vice versa. And I'll never forget, we were in Indiana. We left this house where we had been with friends. Let's just say, as Matt coined it, I had a fun over the night before. And the next day, I get on the bike with Matt, and we would just pace, for every 5 minutes we'd rotate. And I got on the front. I'm like, Matt, this is all I got today, man. We're going like 12 miles an hour. And Matt, being such a great friend, is like, Chris, I got you. You just sit in the back today. I will pull you to wherever we're going, 60 miles away, and you'll take care of me later on.
Wow.
Yeah. So did you have like set mileage goals for each day, or was it more like point to point? Like, I want to on this day, I want to go from here and get would the destination dictate the mileage of the day, is I guess the question.
Yeah, we had mapped out. Matt had done the route, and Matt did all the route. And back then we used Ride with GPS.
Okay.
To map everything out. And then I was taking care of the lodging logistics. So what we didn't know is how much we were going to have to change it because of weather, primarily, thunderstorm, whatever. But amazingly, we stuck to the route the whole way through. We got fortunate wind. We never had a big into the wind day. We never had a terrible weather day. And so we were able to stick to our plan. And so that, like, we had days, we rode 155 miles from Tahoe to Lovelock, Nevada one day. That was our longest day. But then we had other days where it was big mountain days, or we'd been riding a bunch of miles. We'd ride like 45 miles because we wanted to go see the, rock and roll, whatever it was. So we tried to balance it out a little bit. Like we'd cycled enough to know if we had a big day, then maybe we needed an easier day the day after. We always took one day a week off for things, logistics like laundry, tuning. Matt was great about washing and tuning all the bikes and whatnot.
The lake house in Indiana. Lake house in Indiana would be a good day to take off.
Yeah, well, that was and it's funny you say that, because that's what we did. We in Jackson Hole, that was a place we took a day off. We took a day off in Indiana. We took a day off right before Ragbri. You know, so yes, we did try and took a day off, I think, in Niagara Falls. You know, so we tried to make sure that the day off was, you know, kind of a
Meaningful.
meaningful place. Yes.
rather than in a Super 8 motel in Atumwa, Iowa, where there's nothing to do.
Right. No, we were very strategic in our choices, and it was because usually we were able to. It was a time where we could connect with friends. We had people who were SAG support, and that swapped over the course of the trip, and so sometimes they would come and on a rest day, and then we'd switch out the team, so to speak, and get refreshed and all that. So yeah, it was they were usually needed, after 6 days of riding, but we usually found some place because we also had an extra day in Tahoe when we started early on, rode to Lovelock, the 155-mile ride, and then spent a couple of days in Tahoe before we headed out. And yeah.
So
it was.
You said you swapped out your team, but so for those 6 days, there's a car following you, and they meet and they come into town with you, and you've got a place to swap out shit and stuff like that.
Yeah,
so there was always someone,
all that, extra stuff like tires and wheels,
tubes, and
we didn't know what we were going to need. And then, of course, all our clothing and whatnot. But early on, we kind of realized that we didn't need them to follow us. And so we'd be like, all right, well, you guys go see whatever sites you want to go see, and we'll meet for blah, and I'll let Matt explain the whole B2 thing. But we'd have breakfast, and we'd have B2, then we'd have lunch, because we were eating a lot. And so we would meet them occasionally. They would meet us for that. But I'll let Matt tell you about the B2.
Who is them though? Because it's a big ask, right? You said you asked work, right? Like, give me 60 days, and then you got to turn to friends and family and say, okay, listen, this is what I need from you, right?
Right.
You need to go to your work and take X number of days off to follow me while I have fun on a bike, right? So who were the support people?
Well, we had a whole combo, and it was funny, Chris. I don't. There was a couple people we had to really encourage, maybe strongly, including my wife. But I would say more so, we had people who like, hey, I want to do this. This would be really fun. Because so we had, my wife and Chris's wife. They were the early first leg folks up to Tahoe, and then we had some friends of Chris and Brenda's. That Brenda had worked with, the two childhood friends, right, Chris?
Yeah.
Who wanted to have an adventure together, and so they said, "Hey, we'll do a leg," and they got us to Jackson Hole from Tahoe, and then we had Chris's in-laws join us for a pretty good leg as well.
Wow,
Chris, why don't you fill in the latter part of it? Yeah,
and then after that, Brenda came out, and Brenda rode Ragbri with us, and Brenda's my wife, and then at the end of Ragbri, she sagged, and then it was just a confluence of Matt's wife, Cindy, my wife, my daughters, Matt's daughter. Our sons were nowhere to be found, but our daughters,
they didn't think this sounded cool. They thought this whole thing sounded stupid.
Yeah. Well, guys are selfish, right? I mean,
right.
Most I get it. Young guys, be a little bit more selfish.
But but I gotta just real quick. I gotta go back to the B2 thing, because this is something we also learned from Matt's dad.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
So Matt, tell about the B2.
Yeah. So when my dad did this trip across the country, he wrote this book, They Pass This Way, and he was documenting this thing. They'd start in the morning, they get a good breakfast, but then they always had to find some place, usually 20 to maybe 30 miles into the ride, to have a second breakfast, right? Because they both, he and his two buddies loved breakfast, and so the ride was really around what you have to start, but where are we going to have second breakfast, and then we're going to have lunch, and then we're going to have food. And so we quickly adopted the idea, because when you're riding, we averaged 80 miles a day, you burn a lot of calories, and and I had people go, "How much weight did you lose over the course of the ride?" And I'm like, "Oh, none." That was not a goal. The goal is how many pancakes can you eat when you're 49 years old and maybe across the country. Yeah. So that was always.
Will that be a short stack, sir? Oh no.
Well, actually, Dave, what's funny about that is early on, I'd say the first week of the trip, we didn't adjust that way, and we just kind of ate how we normally eat. And all
Yeah.
of a sudden, we both kind of realized, you know what? We're not putting enough calories in.
Okay.
We've kind of, by us doing this every single day,
Yeah.
and because you know how it is when you're working and you're at home, you maybe ride like 20 miles a day on the weekdays because that's all you can get into work. And then on a weekend, you do long ride. Well, all of a sudden, we're doing long rides every day. Quickly, we kind of realized we had to up our calorie intake or it wasn't going to work. So,
Yeah.
and then
So-
conversely, it was a little hard at the end to reduce our calorie intake.
Oh, I bet.
That was, oh my
Yeah.
God. Yeah, that was
Yeah,
that
no
was a
more
shock.
B2s.
Yeah,
Right.
right.
So what was did you guys lock in, like you're talking about pancakes? Were you locked in on pancakes at every stop, or was it like,
Find
I'm
me
going
a
to get a
Denny's.
ham and cheese omelet I'm going to have a ham and cheese omelet every damn day? Or did you guys mix it up, or was it the same old, same old?
No, I would say it was more mixed up because you had to operate based on what was available. First of all, and then everybody, if you're ridden long enough, you find the things that work well digestively and energy wise and all that kind of stuff. So you try to find your groove. I think the thing that was the most common at the end of was usually, I would say, the post ride recovery, which is usually finding some place that had good beer.
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that was really
I don't know.
most
That might
important
be
thing.
bro science on that. That's probably bro science. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say most
my-
mornings, because we were staying in a Super 8,
Yeah.
usually. I mean, it was just the way, it was easy, it was like, it was a bed, it was a hot shower, it wasn't terribly expensive. So it was and they were all across the middle of the country.
Yeah.
Right.
So that usually meant breakfast was a banana and oatmeal. And then B2
Right.
was more your nicer.
Oh, okay.
Because you were
Yeah.
stopping at a restaurant somewhere, but it was because
Yeah.
like there were days in Nebraska when it was 100 and something degrees every day.
Yeah.
And you were like, we got to be on the road at sunrise. We got to be on the road at 5:30. We got to be on the road because we got to be done by 1 o'clock or 12. And so that came into account too sometimes.
Sure.
Yeah, you just raised a great question. I do want to backtrack in a minute though, because you said, oh, when you're at home, you ride 20 miles and one on the weekend, a long one on the weekend. I want to know what it took to train to prepare to ride that, right? I want to make sure we go back to that, but I am very interested in the daily routine, right? So is it most mornings you were up like the crack of dawn? Is it, or you just adjusted that it's like, oh, it's going to be freaking hot, let's get going? Or what was the routine?
Matt?
Yeah, no, I'd say, in terms of the daily thing, we were I think Chris's father-in-law described it the best. He goes, like, they were very professional. But I would say we were very disciplined and planned around, like, okay, we know what the route is, we know what the weather was going to be, and we were generally up and tried to be out by somewhere between 7 and 8 o'clock in the morning most days, because we're trying to get a lot of riding in before the heat of the day, because we started in June 21st, I think was the date, and so we were going to be 60 days right in the heat of the summer, and then try to be done by between 1 and 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and so we'd get up, make sure the bikes are taken care of, and we'd be on our way, and luckily Chris and I are both morning people, so that part was really easy. We enjoy riding in the morning, and so that was the plan.
So I'd never do it.
Going west to east turned out to be fortuitous.
Oh God, yes.
Yeah, multiple times we would run into people riding their bikes east to west, and they were constantly giving us stories about having to ride into a headwind. It's not always that way. I mean, that is the trade winds tend to go that way, but not always.
Yeah.
But boy, I remember we were in Wyoming and we saw this woman, and she just looked defeated, and she's like, "Oh my goodness, I've been riding in the wind for like 20 days." We'd get up and we'd have like, well, you went the wrong way.
Yeah. That's the note to self. If you ever decide you want to ride across the country, west to east for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
I have heard that from multiple sources. There's one guy that does my old shop rides. He said the same thing. He said it
Oh,
was
yeah.
just constant battle into the wind.
Yeah.
Did you ever have a day where you just you got up, you opened the blinds, you look out and say, no, fuck that, I'm not doing it, right? Like I'm not going out there in that weather.
Yeah,
Or
we did. Remember, Matt, we were in Illinois, and
Yeah.
it was a huge thunderstorm, which tend to hit
Yep.
in the afternoon, right? So like we would try and be done. Like we had a day riding into Erie, that Pennsylvania, that like, okay, we got to get out of here early because the storm's going to roll in. But this day in particular, it was a morning thunderstorm, and so we just hung in the hotel or motel until about 11 or 12 o'clock. Finally cleared, and we're like, all right, we got 80 miles. We got to go hammer now, you know,
right.
and get there. But that
Well-
was the only big day I remember that.
Yeah, and the weather was a big part of the cross country story, because I coined myself Moses Matt, because my job was to part the clouds and make sure we didn't have rain.
No pressure. Yeah.
And actually, I think we were able to avoid having to ride in the rain.
Yeah.
I think every day, because we either planned around it or we just had days where we saw it coming and we're like, okay, we're going to get in front of it. And we had incredible luck. And days where we literally landed at the hotel and then a deluge happened. Rochester, New York was the best place for that.
Yeah.
You can see the clouds chasing us, and all of a sudden we pull in and then boom. So
Wow.
That's amazing. That's amazing luck.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chris got really tired of me and my Moses Matt stories after. We're like, see, Chris, look what I'm doing here, man.
Yeah.
I didn't get as tired of it though as your wife got really tired of it.
That's right. That's true. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
But, you know,
I'm thinking your wives are really good sports to really do the sag. I mean, I'm picturing like trying to present this to my wife as like a concept, loosely. Like I would never even think of doing this, but hey, check this out, and then trying to get to a spot where like maybe I could convince her to drive a leg. I don't know, man.
You know,
Both of
I'll
our
let you,
both of
let me just put this, because Mike, because I have floated the notion. We talked about it with Claire, right? About recreating the California AIDS ride and doing it, right? And she's like, yeah, beyond Santa Barbara, there's really not that much. So why don't you just do a 4-day thing to Santa Barbara, right? Or something like that. And I was like, yeah. And I looked at Sue and I'm like, hey, wouldn't that be cool? Like, we'll do that and you can drive, I'll get a couple people and you could just bring the car and tag along. She just was like, no. Like, no.
Right.
Let's be really clear. Absolutely not. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. My wife would be like, who are you talking to right now? Are you talking to me? No.
Okay, Mike
no
and
way.
Dave, I'm gonna help you out here.
Oh,
Okay,
So
please.
our second ride we did was from Canada to Mexico. We started in Vancouver, and
yeah.
whatever. On that ride, we had more of us. We had 5 of us who rode to Tahoe, and then 5. Anyway, so we had Matt's wife, my wife, Mike Franzen, the Franzens, Dave,
Yeah.
Mary. They all sat. So now all of a sudden,
The whole
it's a
trip, yeah.
party. Like we have the 5 guys riding, but now during the day, the women who they were trying to decide whether they're going to ride or not, and they said, "No, we're not going to ride. We're just going to have fun every day." So they had their own thing every day. We were blessed because they were taking care of us and hauling all of our gear for us.
Yeah.
So the single sag's a little hard to sell, but the friend,
Yes.
is
Right.
a little bit easier.
Yeah.
All right.
And I could see for a shorter trip, you could get a group to maybe commit to it. But for across the country, 60 days.
Yeah.
There will be a special place in heaven for both of our spouses for sure.
Right.
But remember, they did it for the first 6 days, and then they both had a pretty big break. Brenda was with us for longer than my wife Cindy, and then Cindy joined us at the end. And there were some things happening in our lives, my wife and I's lives, that were hard while we were gone and that kind of thing. So it was but I think they both kind of listened to Chris and I talk about this adventure for a long time, and my wife and I had ridden through Europe when we were younger, and So she got it. And Brenda's up for like anything that sounds like a great adventure, I'd say, Chris, don't you think?
Yes.
You know, yeah.
That's so cool.
Wow.
Now, it sounds like Brenda's a cyclist. Now, you, Matt, you just mentioned that you and Cindy rode through Europe, but is she currently a cyclist as well?
Not currently. I mean, she still thinks of herself, I think, that way, but she hasn't been out. She had a knee injury when she was a number of years ago and that kind of thing. So, but we're going cycling. We were doing a cycling trip in Italy this summer. So she's like, yeah, I'm gonna, and she's just decided that, riding an e-bike isn't a crime. So she's hopping on an
Good.
e-bike and gonna go through southern Italy this summer. So yeah, but trying to get her out to, hey Cindy, let's go go for a 20-mile ride. She's like, why don't you go do that by yourself? I think that would be fun.
Yeah, but
where's Chris? Go have Chris do that with you. Yeah.
at least she understands cycling on a level. Like the
she does,
the
for
challenge for me is my wife doesn't understand it. She doesn't understand it. She just has no,
she sees no joy.
Yeah.
She's no joy.
Yeah. She rides an e-bike. She rides an
Yeah.
e-bike to work and stuff. And, but it's really recreational. And I was hoping that when she got the e-bike going, that it might, get her excited and she'd feel this level of accomplishment, or just she would have some different feels that we could explore. And so I decided one day, I said, hey, let's ride up to the lake. We're gonna, and she was on board. She's like, okay, yeah. So we went and did it. She's on her e-bike. I'm on my gravel bike, and she just like throttled me the whole way. She's got 28-mile-an-hour e-bike, and I'm just
right.
like,
yeah.
Like he's trying to talk to me and everything. I'm just like, this is not working out, babe. I'm doing everything I can to hang on, but I thought that experience, was great for me. I was happy. And then the next weekend, I'm like, hey, you want to go for another ride? She's like, nah, I did that already. It's just it's just over.
Yeah, because what cycling was, I mean, it's been a part of my life since I was, in my early teens, and doing adventure kind of riding. And when my wife and I met, she got introduced to cycling through me. And then when she graduated from college, independent of me, she went and rode through Europe for a month with some friends and
wow,
all over France. And so she had a lot of experience with this and had developed her own love of doing cycling adventures, not maybe quite at the same level that I had, but it was. And so we rode a ton together when we were first married before our kids were born. And so she had I think her biggest thing was, like when Chris and I decided to do this, like, wait a minute, I'm not getting to do this too. Like she probably would have been more, if I had hatched the idea of riding across the country, she would have been like, yeah, okay, let's go do that. That was before our kids were born. Right?
Yeah.
Then that changed everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's go back to this. Yeah, let's go back to this training thing, because you brought it up again. Why don't you go ride 20? No, why don't you go do the 20 miles yourself? What does it take to, if I start to float this idea to my wife, since I'm currently unemployed, so I've got lots of time to ride across America. So
plenty of time.
But what does it take? What's the training? How you decide you're going to do it. So count backwards. We start training here, and then we know we're launching on this date. What's how far in advance, and then what does it take?
Well, I think there's two trainings. One, training your the people you work for that you're going to do this, and getting the idea that, like, I'm going to take the time off, and actually having the plan to build and be ready for this. And that's one thing. But the physical part of it, I think, I mean, we really started in earnest, I think almost a year and a half of deciding we're going to do this, and then saying, okay, how do we develop our training plan so that we feel ready for it over time? And so we were just ramping up our volume, the riding volume, in the 9 months before the trip. Chris, would you agree with that? I was trying to think of
if you remember in 2011
frame.
We did that 100-mile mountain bike race that went up in
that was essentially
Bend.
a year away, right?
Bend.
Yeah, it was in Bend. Yeah.
But I think what we learned was, in particular on the weekends, we had to get comfortable being in the saddle for 5 to 7 hours, 5 days,
Yeah.
Back-to-back days. Yeah.
and we also had, and you know, when you go for a ride, I mean, usually you go your 50, 60 miles, whatever it is on a weekend. And then at the end you stop, and we're like, okay, we also have to get used to riding and stopping, which, you know, we never do.
Right.
Oh, certainly on the weekends, which was actually kind of fun. You know, we'd ride for 20, 25, 30 miles and then go stop. And so, Dave, if we start in Danville, you know, we go down to Livermore and we go like, okay, we're going to go stop here and eat. And then we're going to ride some more. And so we're trying to replicate what we're going to be doing.
Yeah.
So it was getting used to starting and stopping.
It was a hardship, man. Like riding to breakfast and then having breakfast and then riding some more.
Yeah,
and
sounds
then
really
doing
rough.
it back-to-back days. Like, you know,
Well-
trying to explain to our wives.
One of
why
my
we gone the
favorites was
entire
we rode out
weekend.
to, remember we rode out to Winty and we had like lunch at Winty.
Yeah.
You know, which just sounds great. But then it's like, okay, but now I got to go ride 40 more miles.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
hard to get going again,
Yeah,
right?
and so we had to. So it wasn't just training for like riding 80 straight miles, but it was training for riding and starting and stopping. And so we did a lot of the weekends were a lot of big rides. Weekdays were just work. You know, both Matt and I traveled for work, so you know, you just had to kind of work. You know, do what you can do, right?
Yeah, we would try to get like, you know, at least 60-mile back-to-back on Saturday, Sunday kind of thing, and then maybe get one bigger ride in during the week, and then maybe a couple of smaller ones and that kind of thing. And I remember like the first week of the trip for me in particular was you know, I just trying to get through work and be ready. There was a lot going on, and the first week of the trip was really hard on me. Chris had to tow me really up to Tahoe, and then even the ride out to Lovelock, Nevada was a rough day. But then after that, you know, all of a sudden the body adjusted, and then I was I felt great the rest of the trip all the way to Boston. And
Right.
so it was wild how you know, how quickly your body can adjust, even when you got some training volume in.
Yeah. Well, I think it's such a good idea to incorporate the food into your training rides. You know, you don't ever want the first time you're doing something to be during the actual
right,
thing
the
that
event,
you're
yeah.
doing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've done a couple of the Everestings, you know, and I would park my car. So naturally you want to warm up.
I mean, you've done that more than once.
Yeah. I
That
know.
sounds like the kind of thing you would do once and be like, I'm done.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
I get
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. So I've
Right, you
done
want to see if you can do it
Hey,
faster.
I
Three
say
of
this.
them.
I have to say this to all our guests but Mike has an unhealthy relationship with his bicycles.
I do. I do. Yes. Yes, I do. And my wife shares your opinion too. So that's why the selling of the cross-country trip.
Yeah.
Oh my Lord.
Right.
But you know, in preparation for that, you know, you always want to warm up before you start climbing. But to do an Everest, you need a base camp, right? You got to have like a change of kit, maybe extra shoes, food, water, whatever. So I just started driving to the bottom of the hill, and then I would get out of my car and just go straight up the hill. And it was like, it's so different.
So your first lap is your warm up. Yeah.
Yeah. At 7% or whatever, you know? And so, but during the process of you know, it's like a battle of attrition in a way, you know, trying to get it all done. And, but having that training, knowing, you know, every 5 laps I'd come down, I'd eat a certain thing. And I was training that way. And then when I did the event, that's how I was doing it. And you know how your body responds and you know what you need. And so, yeah, that's really good that you would do that. I could see where maybe a lot of people would, even like a big dummy like me would think, hey, I'm in shape. I don't need to do anything. I'll just start day one, you know, but you
I
really
mean,
do need to adjust.
Well, and all the electrolyte drinks and, you know, whether it's goo packs or other bars and that kind of stuff, everybody finds that thing that essentially your body does well with, and some of them you find like, this is really decent product, but it just did not work for me.
Yeah.
So you know, like we were both very dialed in, I think, by the time we did the trip, of like, okay, this is what we got to have. And and also the recovery at the end of the day, you know, we had the recovery drinks and all those kinds of things so that you can be sustainable over a long period of time.
That
Yeah.
that brings up a good point. We'd finish and you finish and you get to the hotel and you're unpacking the car but you're also trying to get yourself ready for the next day. And so you'd get the foam roller out, you'd do some yoga, you would have your post-ride nutrition, and you're, like I said, unloading the car and getting everything ready. And then, you're trying to go to a museum or something because you don't want to, you want to see what the country.
And then write the blog. Got it. Got
Yeah,
the
write the
red
blog.
flag.
So,
Yeah.
Right.
so there became a whole systematic routine, which, helped. And I think of all the rides we've done like this, having that routine helps tremendously.
Well, and I think also if you talk to anybody who ever has any trouble sleeping, the best sleep therapy is go ride your bike for 80 miles every day. Because at the end of the day, you will fall asleep hard.
Yeah.
You may be onto something, because that's my problem. So I'm going to hang up and go ride 80 miles.
There you
Right.
go, Dave. Yeah.
See, but here's a question. It's actually a two-parter. Now, obviously, this route had some meaning, right? Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, friends in Indiana, Yellowstone, that type of thing. Now, there was a day, if I'm not mistaken, that GPS failed you, right? Didn't like, right? Wasn't there all of a sudden there was no road or something like that?
Okay,
Well,
so no, Matt. No. I will.
Okay. All right, Chris, go for it, Chris.
So I didn't appreciate
Matt, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to bring this up.
This is part of the trip for sure.
This is part of the journey. And I didn't realize how hard it was to plan a route, because when we did Canada, Mexico, I did more of the route planning. So I had a greater appreciation for it later on. But Matt had gone to ride with GPS. I'm thinking, okay, how hard is it? Right. So we're going and it's all great. And we're up in Idaho and we're supposed to turn, and we turn. And I go, Matt, that's a dirt road. and we're not, and this is back in the days before the wider tires. We have like 23 inches tires.
Right.
Riding 120 psi.
Yeah. And we're like, what the heck? And Matt's, we're looking, we're trying to get reception in Idaho and look on ride GPS, and it's just like, well, this is the way it's showing us to go. And so it was just the first time that we came across and realized that the tool we were using didn't always know if it was an asphalt or dirt road.
Yeah, in fact, we discovered early on that nowadays, if you hop on the navigation tools, they're really good about the different road services and stuff like that. But this is early days with that technology, and
that's why
they're like, hey, this is a road, and it was a road, but it was not. We had one or two of those days in Canada, Mexico too, but yeah, so we had a couple of times where we had to reroute for sure, and I mean, in the scheme of the entire trip, the number of days where we actually had to reroute because either the technology was bad, the roads were bad, it was relatively small. Most of the route planning was pretty reliable, and I think today would be even more reliable because of all the technology. Yeah.
But that's it. But that brings up an interesting question now. So let's say you're going to recreate this, and you brought it up, right? I mean, I know that you have a gravel bike, Matt.
Yeah.
And would you choose a different weapon, and this way you potentially get to take a different route because you don't care if it's not paved? Like, would you, if you were going to do it over again, would you do it on a gravel bike just so that you didn't have to worry about that, but B, it afforded you the opportunity to go a different road through Yellowstone or a different road through Idaho or something like that? Would you think it would add to the trip?
Yeah, I mean, now having ridden the gravel bike a lot, I think there could be a whole nother way to experience the adventure of seeing the country, and particularly around wilderness and around just around the non-human beauty of the whole thing. Now, having said that, I think one of the things that was just the incredible part of the whole trip, other than just seeing the physical beauty of the country and all that stuff, is just the people that we met along the way in these little bitty towns that were just, I mean, they just created some experiences and stories and memories that were just you know, unreal, like, you know, all the way from some guy dressed up in a coyote hat, you know, in downtown Sacramento, to being in this little bitty town, and I think it was South Dakota, where my dad had actually gone through that town before, and they had the local reporter come and interview us, and for the local newspaper. And so you had, you know, the road connected us to people that
Okay.
was just a huge, it was a rich part of the experience. And so like, you know, the road was really awesome, but the gravel could get you to some places. And also now I think just the whole bike car interface is a bigger challenge today. I don't know if it's just true going across the country, but I feel so much safer when I'm on the trails or the dirt roads rather than out on the highways. I don't know, Chris, how you'd think about that.
Well, Dave, Brendan and I, when we did this Europe ride, I told you about, rode gravel bikes. And so we took gravel bikes, partly because we were hauling our own gear. And so we needed something, a sturdier frame and bigger tires. But we rode on, and in Europe, I mean, like, the Netherlands were amazing. I mean, they were like paved, like amazing bike trails. But the whole way we were on bike trails or cobblestone or crushed gravel, very rarely on roads that cars shared, because they have such an amazing bike network over there.
Okay.
But the gravel bike was great for Europe. You couldn't, it was spectacular because we were able to go, like you described, we're able to go routes and places that you couldn't go on a regular road ride, like riding along some of the canals on like a crushed gravel trail or a dirt trail, and then having cobblestones, you know. And so the gravel, so yeah, to Matt's point, it like, you could definitely do a cross-country gravel ride. It would take longer.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it would.
Yeah.
It would beat you up a little bit more. I mean, I definitely know I felt that on the Europe trip, you know, just kind of the, you know, that upper body where it's shaking on the dirt and whatnot. So it's a little bit different experience.
Well,
it would be fun.
Go ahead.
It would be fun to plan a route and go like, where would this take us? You know, in a way that would be very different. That would be kind of cool, actually.
But I think I wouldn't want to miss that people experience. I mean, like my brother-in-law, real quickly, my brother-in-law works for the United States Golf Association, and he had a tournament, I think it was up in Oregon, and he shipped his motorcycle out there, and he doesn't take it on highways, and he rode down to Pebble Beach, all on the back roads. And his biggest story, all back roads, and his biggest story are the small towns that he stopped in and had lunch at a bar, and the people that he met. So that was what his biggest memory was, and that's what he shared with us. You know.
Yeah. Ask him if he had done that, and then he showed up in the equivalent of his underwear at a small town bar, and how we thought that would be versus motorcycle gear. We got some really fun receptions in small towns.
I bet.
I can imagine.
America. It was great.
Any bad experience? Because I've heard you don't want to go the southern route. I hear that's not, like, it's not as welcoming.
Yeah, no, I think, I mean, we had a few moments in a couple of bars where we had like you could feel a little tension about people, like, but then all of a sudden you get the like, what are you guys doing here? And you'd start a conversation with people, and they were like, oh, this is amazing, you know, and you should go this way and that way. And so I can't think of, I mean, we had a couple of people who looked at us and said, you're out of your freaking mind. What are you doing? That's stupid.
Right.
Only
right.
one or two.
We had one experience, and it was early on. I was in Nevada, and it was in Carson City, and it was the guys in a truck at the stop sign, and we're coming, and he does the fake pull out.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
and you know, just the fake pull out where it's like, hey, I'm gonna pull in front of you, and it was obvious he was toying with us, you know, and I was like, oh my goodness, so we have to deal with this the whole way, and that was it. We never had another experience. Anyone try and run us off the road, and we had heard horror stories about areas in the South. What I've heard more about in the South, as opposed to the people, it's the dogs.
Oh yeah.
The issue in the South is the unleashed dogs, and you're on the rural, remote roads, and the dogs start chasing you.
Right.
And that's like, if you one of the things that we used for this trip was adventurecycling.org. So if you go to adventurecycling.org, they have a magazine that comes out about people riding all over the world. but they have their whole network, and they were formed back in this bicentennial bike ride in 1976. So we read their publications, used some of their maps to help figure where to go, like where to stop. So they were a great resource for this. But in reading some of that, that's what you'll hear about in the South is just the concern. And again, it tends to be more, anywhere you can run into people. But
well, and I'll give you an example of the absolute opposite of that kind of experience that we had. We were in like rural Nebraska, I think. And we're at a small hotel in a small town, and we're having dinner, and there's like maybe 4 tables of people eating dinner there. And there's a couple you could see was just sitting over next to us, and we're having a conversation with the waitress about where we're going and what we're doing. And she was very kind. It was very sweet. We had a really nice conversation, and everybody in the restaurant could hear what was going on. And the next day we get out, we're riding, and it's a really hot day. It's 100 plus. We're probably, I don't know, 50 miles into the ride, Chris, and we're going up this long, gentle, not super steep grade. And there's a car pulled over on the right-hand side, and it was probably, I don't know, a mile away or something. We're pulling up, and all of a sudden we see there, and there's this couple from the night before who were out touring around Nebraska and that kind of stuff. They had heard about our trip, and they're standing at the top of the hill with like, they had like some Snickers bars and some drinks, and they thought, well, we just thought you guys might use some food or drink at this point. And they just thought it was the coolest thing. And we're like, and they didn't know us. They were just people who heard about what we were doing. And it was just the kindest, sweetest thing. And,
nice.
And so we had way more of that kind of experience than the stray dog chasing us.
Right. Yeah, it's funny. We're talking about safety, and you of course on the road you're always concerned about cars, but off-road gets into a different type of safety, and you could get into trouble. I know we do this. There's a gravel race out here, the Wild West, right? It's up in Red Bluff, and there was I had a crash, and my shifter broke, and I got stuck in this. It was like, I was just stuck for hours. And the guys that I was stuck with, they were 2 guys that they do a 2-way radio service. They're retired guys. They do 2-way radio service, but they were police guys, both of them.
Okay.
And so I'm sitting there for, we're just trying to find stuff to talk about because I'm waiting on this SAG vehicle that's never coming. And the guy says, yeah, well, it's actually pretty surprising that you're able the route that he has opened up for today, because you go into some areas where if you win in those areas, you're taking your life in your own hands. So there's some drugs being grown out in some areas.
Oh, great.
Right. So
yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So you could see where if you're charting a route across the to do all this gravel backcountry, you could end up with some unsavory kind of conditions.
You might
involving a car.
Yeah, you find yourself not welcome.
Yeah. So their safety is always a challenge.
Yeah, is that the music from Deliverance that I hear?
Right. Yes. Right. Yes.
Yeah. These guys had some stories. It was actually a lot of fun. Even though I was sitting there and freezing my butt off in my Lycra. Nobody had a blanket or anything, so I was just listening to these stories. But so
I guess my point to that whole thing was that I don't want to bypass the city. I'm just saying the towns, because I want that experience. But I'm just saying with the gravel bike, Chris, to your Europe experience, it just means there's one less thing you have to worry about, right? And it just affords you a little bit more flexibility.
I'm sure even if you did off-road, you would have to come into town to get your hotel or your food. So you still have those experiences probably where you're interacting with city folk.
Yeah, and I think all the way across the country, really, I mean, the number of places where we had like a lot of tight interaction with cars are really worried about it. It was really just on the coast. It was when we were leaving, and there's a lot of people, and when we're getting to Boston, there's a lot of people. And everything in between, we were in places that were pretty rural, where traffic was pretty light, and even when we're on pretty main roads. So I never, there was very few places where we were on the road where I really felt like, oh, this isn't safe. This is a really bad idea. What are we doing here? I
Mhm.
can't.
Part of that is the research we'd done on the route we were taking.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
part of that is being a conscientious cyclist.
Yeah,
We're if a car's coming, we're going to get behind one another. We're not going to stay too abreast. And
Right.
so, I don't know. We all ride here a lot, and I've always found that if I'm conscientious, most times then people appreciate that, and they
Yep.
are. It's
Yeah.
when, and that's not to say everyone, but most people
yeah,
recognize that. And
yeah,
all right, so that doesn't
Yeah.
mean you're not going to get the person who's having a bad day, but in most cases.
yeah.
Yeah.
You should see it, Mike. There was, I think, if I'm not mistaken, there was a cool picture of you guys. You put your back tires in the Pacific Ocean, right?
Mhm.
When you rolled out, and then was it your front tire in the
Yeah,
Atlantic. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. My
That's
my
good.
dad did the same thing with his buddies when he did his trip. That's what inspired that idea for sure.
Very cool.
I don't want to get off of that, but because I think we could talk. It's like any party I go to. It's always cyclists, so we could talk for hours. But here you go, you do this, and a couple years later, you get this notion. I'm going to go from the Canadian border to the Mexican border, and I'm
Yeah.
super interested in that, because that's an idea that I think I could probably sell, right?
Yeah.
Support or no support. If I got someone to support me, I think okay, I'm going to be gone for a little time, but I'm going to be within the state of California. So
Yeah.
when did that happen, and what brought that on?
I think what brought it on was we had such an amazing trip going
Oh, it was
across the
incredible.
US.
Yeah.
I mean, it was it was my number one bucket highlight of my life kind of thing,
Mhm.
excluding, kids and marriage and all that stuff.
Yeah, right.
And all that, yeah.
But
It's okay. Mike can edit that part. Don't worry
Yeah.
about it.
so we're in that thing, Dave, where it's like we want to relive that experience, we're feeling.
Yeah.
And so we started talking about it. And by that time we had some other good friends, Mike Franzen, who and
Yep.
some other friends who also were like, oh, that sounds great. We want to do that. And so that's what kind of grew out, that Matt and I wanted to do something again. We weren't sure what. Then we started talking, well, let's go north to south. We went east to west or west to east. And then we had some friends who wanted to do it. So it kind of grew from that. And that was a lot of that whole idea of trying to recapture that joy and that feeling we had. And we did, and so
You did. Okay.
and it took us a month, but what's interesting about that route is, because we kind of went through the Cascades and the Sierras to get to Tahoe, and then we came to Danville and went down the coast. So we had almost as much climbing on that trip, which was half 2,000 miles, that we had on the trip across country, which was 4,000 miles.
Surprise.
You're
Like
going, you're going down the mountain anyway. Yeah. So
and 2/3 of it was in the first half. So that the start of that trip was that was a piece of work.
If you see Mike and talk to Mike or Matt, they will tell you one of their hardest days of cycling ever was going up Mount Hood.
Yeah.
Oh, no kidding.
Oh, okay.
And it was because the day before we had this dirt
road
road
incident.
Route. We had gone like 120 miles. We had climbed by Mount, this crazy day, and then the next day we got to go up Mount Hood, and it was just like,
Yeah.
Wow.
If that's one where, if you look at the adventure cycling, Dave, they have two great routes. One's the coastal route the whole way. The other one's more the Cascades route, and then goes down to the Sierras the whole way. We kind of made our own, where we're going to do half the mountain, half at the beginning, hit Tahoe, and then we're going to go down and then do the coastal route. So we want to kind of combine and do half mountain, half coastal. And that was a really fun way to do it.
Yeah.
I'm glad it was a good experience too, because you could imagine, like, okay, this is going to be great. Mike, you got to join us, because this is, and if it wasn't as fun, then
it's a little more challenging. I definitely missed the trip with Matt, where it's just the two of us. We cycled together forever. We know each other extremely well, and just the synergy of 2 people versus the synergy of 5 riders, 3
Right.
spouses. That was a different dynamic. So it was
Okay.
great in its own way, but the journey with Matt just across country was
Well, and
Yeah.
I would also add that if you're going to do something like that, it is great to have a very dear friend who is a world-class organizer, and that is Chris. Like, Chris is an incredible organizer of things, and he's an incredible communicator with people, and that's where the blog thing came from, and that kind of stuff. And I think, and both of us, I think, start with just generally a positive attitude, and like, hey, when things go wrong, we're going to figure it out. It's going to be good. And so if you're going to do it with people, then having people who can adapt and adjust and deal with adversity and are resilient and that kind of stuff has a really big impact. And so that's what made the adventure fun. The second trip was incredible experience. We had a great time, but it was much more logistically and operationally and people challenging, because we had, with Chris and I, it was usually he and I and maybe 2 other people who were the SAG. So you had 4 or 5 people and a couple segments where you had a lot. But on the Canada Mexico trip, we had it was a rolling party of
Right.
5, like at least 10 people. So the logistics of it were way more difficult.
So
Yeah.
on the second trip, Chris, did you blog every day too?
I did. And actually,
did.
even on the trip in Europe, my wife and I did as well. So yeah, part of it was couple things, Mike. One, it was like a chance to journal and keep this memory.
Right.
Yeah.
And so if I look back on it now, I'm so thankful that we did it. And I did a lot of it, but I didn't do all of it. Other people contributed as well. And then Matt's sister was spectacular. She took
Like,
the
can you see?
blog-
Can you guys see that? I know you can't.
No,
No,
no.
you
So-
can't say. Oh,
there
there
you
it
go.
is. There
There
it
it
is.
is.
Yeah,
So she made a
there's the
book. She made a
Oh,
book
wow.
Oh,
or trip, and so every summer I look through it. But
Yeah.
so the journaling was great for us as a memento. It also, like we talked about, family and friends. And then what's fun is every now and then still, I mean, this trip was 11 years ago. People still see the blog and comment on it. Because they'll find it when they're trying to ride across country. So I'll get questions here and there from the blog about, hey, I'm thinking about riding across country. What about this? So.
Well, I have
wow.
a idea on the type of commitment that is. I did last summer we did this European trip.
Yeah.
And we did the French, Italian, and Swiss Alps. And it was
Oh my God, that sounds
Yeah.
amazing.
It was, and it was, we didn't have a tour guide or anything. It was myself and a buddy, and my buddy did all the planning. So he had all the days, all the routes. He bought all the hotels. He did all and I basically just, he's got a cubicle job, and he was able to basically spend time on it where I couldn't, and I just compartmentalized the whole thing to him. But when we get over there, and so the first day we do Gavia Pass, right? And it's amazing. And we have this unbelievable experience at the top of the mountain. There's this little chalet there, and this guy whips out an accordion, and the whole place is singing these Italian folk songs. And
amazing.
It's like 2:00 in the afternoon on a Tuesday. And it's like, what is going on here, man? These people know how to live here in Italy,
Yeah.
But so we have this amazing day, and then we come back to the hotel, and then there's a lot of driving, because we were driving, from one mountain zone to another, and it's a lot of driving. Even if it's only 20 miles, it's 20 miles of ziggy-zaggy, And so, anyway, the days were long. We get in, and my buddy, he was filming everything. He's doing all this Instagram stuff, all this stuff. And I would do a little bit, but there's only so much in the tank,
Right.
I'm always thinking the next day. It's like, okay, well, I want to get up here at 6 so we can get on the mountain by 7:30, but yeah, this guy, he was so dedicated, and it took so much time I just can't imagine doing an entire trip. We were only there for 2 weeks, and
Yeah.
but I can't imagine doing a 60-day trip and then being tethered to that blog each and every day. I could see where it might be cathartic on some level, but it also has got to be a pretty big grind to get it done, right?
There were days. There were days
Uh-huh.
that was like, and
Yeah.
Matt would step in and do it, and then we'd have sometimes a guest writer. But you also, how it is. You get in a rhythm. It's like, all right, I'm going to sit down. I'm going to write this, and kind of figure it out. And so,
Well,
Well,
my
and I
rhythm
think
was I'm not going to do it at all. And then when I got home,
well,
I made a post for each individual day, right? And I had
Nice.
10,
Yeah.
10 photos. So I
Yeah.
would have it, so everybody that follows me, whatever, they could have it. But it was really more of a selfish thing where it's like, I want to be able to go relive each day. And,
Yeah.
so I wanted to have it recorded somewhere, but it took me probably 2 weeks after we got back to get that all done, just because it's
w-
a, it's a lot.
yeah, I'd say, there's when you do it like we did it, and I should say Chris, it becomes part of the ride. So as you're riding, you're actually the whole
Yes.
time, almost every
Yeah.
day, you're thinking about, oh, this is going to be great for the blog. We got to get a picture of this. We got to take we talk about it through the course of the day, because you'd be like, oh, this is going to be something that would be really fun or cool or
Yep.
special to share. And Chris has just an incredible talent for just being able to organize all those thoughts, put them down quickly, and then I just took a lot longer to kind of absorb and process and kind of think about the experience. And so I was more like the weekly contributor, where it just took me more time. It was just the way I process stuff, where
Yeah.
Chris was just really, really efficient and effective.
Mine was
And
more like the daily recap. Hey, here's what we did and saw today.
yeah,
And
Yeah.
Matt would kind of give a weekly reflection more.
yeah,
Mhm.
that's probably
Yeah.
that's a good way to describe it, I'd say. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know what?
But yeah,
I'm gonna
now it's just it was a fun part of the experience after a while. But yes, there was definitely days where like,
Right.
I'm going to say though that, and Mike, I'm. This is not intended as criticism, but and I'm not breaking your balls at all here. But I think it also speaks to the understanding and the dynamic that Chris and Matt have, and so you're going into it with the same expectations and the same kind of mindset. Mike, the way you ride, it's like I'm all in. Like if I'm on if I'm on out the west, I'm going to pin this thing, right? So it's more about the ride as opposed to two guys that know each other really well and are just out having a grand old time. So I think that they pull into town at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and there is something left in the tank. It's not about,
Right.
yeah,
you know what I mean? And I think it's important. You guys would know this better, but and that I think it maybe is a reflection of the second trip you did. There's got to be an expectation, agreed upon expectation, that this is how we're going to ride, and this is what
yeah. I
And,
mean, a simple example of that is, I love photography and I love taking pictures of stuff, landscape and that kind of thing. And are you guys still there? I think Dave
Yeah.
just froze up on me. Is that me?
We
I'm here.
can hear
We're
you,
here.
but
You're the one who's frozen.
yeah, you're frozen, but we hear you fine. Or we were.
Yeah.
All right, Chris, go.
All right.
No,
Well, I
no
think what Matt
pressure.
was going to say.
Yeah.
No.
I'm here
Because-
till Thursday.
Because Dave, that is an excellent point.
Yeah.
And because what happened was,
Oh, there we go.
I think Matt and I had this. We knew that it was about the journey and experiencing the journey. And when we then had other people join us for the Canada ride, we had to be very specific. Like, this is not about how fast we can do it, how hard we can do
Right.
it.
Right.
Setting the Strava record. This
Right.
is about enjoying the journey.
Yeah.
And so Matt and I had always had that synergy, and now he's back. So I'll let him tell about his photography.
Right. Sorry.
Good job,
wait a
Chris.
minute,
Good
I
ad.
got
Well
lost.
done.
Was it me or you guys?
Yeah.
No,
You're not a rookie. You're good at this.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where I stopped off, but it was just like Chris and I quickly, I like to take pictures of beautiful landscape, and Chris is like, if there's a picture without a person, why have a picture? Like, because it's a way to document, the experience of the people, and it brings back that memory where I get a charge out of like Mount Shasta,
Yeah.
right? But Chris was he was really awesome, and just saying, hey, I know this is something that's important to you that you want to include in this thing, and so he was incredibly tolerant of like, hey, I want to stop because this is an incredible photograph, and we don't, and then, but we did, we had all the combinations with people and that kind of thing too. So we had, there were things about the experience that we both wanted that I think we knew about before going into the ride. So that was really helpful.
That's
Yeah.
really good
Cool.
insight, Dave, about Mike's writing versus what we're describing, because I found that with all my friends I ride with. Matt and I have a great synergy on it, but you kind of have to have that, I don't know, pre-ride agreement almost, like this
Yeah.
is
Right.
what this is going to be.
Yeah.
Like we are going to go and like hammer, or hey, you know what, we're going to ride, and we're going to go down to Pleasanton, and we're stop for a coffee and a roll, and there's
Right.
value in both, right?
Yeah.
There's
for
a
sure.
value in like, okay, hey, how fast can I make up to the second ranger station at Diablo? Okay,
Yep.
we're trying to kill each other today. I don't know, whatever. But luckily, Matt and I have that, and with most of the people I ride, it's kind of evolved, particularly as we've got older and we're not training for racing anymore. That it's like, all right, well, let's talk about what the ride's going to be.
Yeah.
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 And that's why I think like as cool as Ram would be to do,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you're not going to see anything, right? Because you're just maniacally focused on getting there. And I make this is a stupid analogy all the time, but I get very frustrated when these families, the spring break rolls around, and so they jump on a plane, they go to Paris to see the Louvre, and they've got their 3 and 4 year olds with them. Like they don't care about the Louvre,
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like they're not going to appreciate it. There's
Yeah.
so much of this country. There's so much of this country that's so beautiful that I'd rather do it your way and see the things that I want to see, as opposed to put my head down and one long straight road, and then get to the East Coast and look back and go, I don't remember a thing.
Yeah, you have to do what's right for you. Dave, probably like all of us here, like sounds like Mike, you've talked about Ram. We've definitely talked about it. We have good friends, John Hansen and Ken Mozak. The four of us had raced together, both mountain bike and road. And we talked about doing Ram. Hey, we'll be a 4-man team. We'll do it. We'll get the motorhome. We'll do the thing. And then, you start reading about like the guys taping the stick to hold their head up. And we're like, oh, this sounds so good anymore.
Yeah.
And,
Right.
Where's the fun part?
We went through that kind of discussion of like, do we want to, and that's so different than what we did. That was going to be like, did the four of us want to have this accomplishment of trying to do Ram? And then I was like, well, forget the 4-man. Let's go to an 8-man team. Let's go to the corporate team where we
Right.
Yeah.
And so ultimately, we just hit the point where we decided that wasn't something we were going to do, and we did this instead.
Yeah, I almost think like you can't even really compare the two, because it's like,
No.
you are from point A to point B, you're kind of doing the same thing. But with Ram, it's a race. You're just like focused. There's going to be camaraderie. There's going to be support, and there'll be like a team element, and there'll be some dynamics out of that you'll get that maybe on your trip you didn't get as much. But your trip is just like the dream, right? Where you have this extra time. You're going to take a day wherever it makes sense. You're going to take that extra day and enjoy. You're going to hit these milestone places along the way. That's not Ram at all. It's a completely different animal. Yeah. So,
and I get that. I get the racing thing. We did it for a short period, and then we kind of like, okay, having a family and having a career and trying to be competitive in bike racing don't seem to go together.
Yeah,
it's hard. Yeah.
And and so Matt and I kind of migrated a little bit more into, hey, we're going to try and go ride hard, but we're going to try and enjoy.
Yeah.
Although Chris and I did have an idea that we thought we'd float with, like the UCI or something like that, of having another racing category that said we need to compete with people who have big jobs, travel a lot, prioritize their marriage and their family experience.
Yeah.
and then we'll race against those guys.
Yeah. Yeah. You just need a good acronym for it, you know?
Yeah, I know,
Like,
right.
yeah.
Right.
So come up with a cat, whatever.
But I
Yeah.
definitely
is,
get the
right?
rambling. I completely understand the appeal of it. It's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
a different thing.
Different
You know,
thing.
Different.
hey, I'm going to go
Yeah.
train for this and do this for a week. You know, it's about what it takes. And I get that. I just, that point in my life passed by and I didn't do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Well, to
and
Dave's, oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Matt.
no, I was just going to say, I mean, it's just a thought I've had about this whole trip, because one of the questions that we got from people that we met all across the trip, without question, was, man, what kind of jobs do you guys have that would allow you to be gone for 60 days? You know,
Yeah.
and Chris and I were both in very fortunate circumstances with, you know, I was a partner in a small company, and Chris was working for a smaller company. He had, you know, a great relationship with the owner of the company, and so we were able to get the flexibility to do that. And so part of doing this, to me, that was one of the consequences, was it was an inspiring thing for people to believe that you could do big things. Because most of the time people take off big chunks of time in our country is when you're sick or something has happened, other than having a baby for, you know, family and that kind of stuff. Most people don't think that you can have a big dream and go do it while you're actively working. And so, like, you know, part of the message that I had for people was, like, you know, dream big, and then decide, and then you're going to take the risk. I'll never forget walking into my partner's office and going, by the way, this is not asking for permission. I'm going to go do this, and this is how we're going to make it work.
Yeah.
And he was like, okay, all right. I'm like, and I'll leave. I mean, I was ready to say I'll leave and I'm going to go take the time off. But if you are good at your job, you know, people don't want to lose good people. And so, you know, part of the notion to me was, hey, you know, dream big, do big things, and you'll be surprised at how you can make those things happen. And at any rate, that was just that was something that was surprised by the question all the time. And then I had several people tell me afterwards, like, now I want to go do something big like this. You showed us how it could be done. And that was cool.
Matt, you just made my life easier, because now I'm looking at my thing saying, okay, an hour 45 into it, because I have to create the sound bite. You just got the sound bite. I mean,
There we
that's,
go.
I think
that's gotta
anybody listening to this could relate to what you just said there.
yeah.
You know, like, dream big, go for it. You know, for my trip to Europe, it was the guy that I went with. We raced Cat 4s in high school at the Early Bird Crits, and we used to read Winning Magazine and dream
Yeah.
about going to Europe one day. And
Yeah.
that was our trip. You know, it was like, and it was only 2 weeks. You know, but that was a big dream,
Yeah.
and it was hard to do. And
Yeah.
but you know, the people around us that love us, they supported us. Yeah, if you set your mind to it, you dream big, you share your dream with others. Yeah, you can.
Yeah. You
We're all
could spend
capable of.
you can spend your life going, well, why not? No, that's not going to work. They got to spend your life trying to figure out how. You
Yeah,
know, that's the thing. And once Chris and I said we want to do this, then it was figuring out how. And that was part of the fun.
that's
Yeah.
awesome.
There we go.
Yeah, that is awesome. So let me ask you this. So 2 incredible trips of a lifetime for you guys.
Oh yeah.
Is there a third?
There could
Yeah,
be.
you know, I would love there to be, you know, I did take a third with my wife, and I came back and I was talking with Matt and Mike and my other friends going, you have to come do this. The whole writing in Europe
Oh
thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and it started, you know, and the B2 was at a boulangerie every day with the little pastry and the cappuccino. It's like, it was unbelievable. And the writing over there is very conducive. And so Mike, I would tell you, like, that's the place to take your wife with the e-bike.
Yeah.
You know, we saw so many people over there, and older people and younger people on e-bikes, and, you know, and I'm talking about, you know, on the trail, and they've got their gear. So yes, I would love there to be. I think we'll see. You know, I remember I'm a relatively new grandfather, and we were in this little place in France, and there was a family. There was it was grandmother, grandfather, parents, and two little kids. And the grandfather was helping the little granddaughter ride, and they were going to ride 20 miles a day along the canals. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's it. That's what I want to do. I want to go with my grandkids and my buddy Matt and his family and go do this.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah.
See, Mike, there you go. It's all marketing. You just have to tell Stella, honey, it's not a bike ride. It's date night, right?
Right. There you go. I mean, there's also some smaller versions of things. You know, we got a bunch of this crew together. We did the trip to Canada, Mexico with, and we spent a week in Asheville, North Carolina, and did some riding. And there's you know, Chris and I have talked a little bit about trying to ride the Natchez Trace because he's living in Nashville part-time now, and that's got a historical part to it. And there's, you know, when you look at the map on Chris's wall, you know, it feels like it would be finished if you had a route from like Maine to Florida on it, possibly. But
Oh, yeah.
you know, but that one's a bigger one. Like, you know, Chris, I'm going to be 61, and you know, Chris is a couple of years older, and this is a lot easier when I was 49. So
Yeah.
we'll see. I mean, there's definitely more adventures in store, but they might look a little different.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, Chris, I got a little taste of what you're talking about with Europe. We did the Sella Ronda ride, which is in the Dolomites, and it's where you go. It's a huge ride. I mean, there were thousands and thousands of people on this ride, and many of them, like you say, were on e-bikes. It was a lot of older people, younger people. You could tell, like, non-cyclists were
Is this
on
going and
these.
riding like the Stelvio and things like that up in the Dolomites?
Well, the Sella Ronda is the Sella Pass, the Campagnola, Portoy,
Okay.
and Sella.
Big mountains, yeah.
Yeah, 4 big mountains. I think it's I want to say it's like maybe 40 miles, and
Oh, wow.
a fair amount of climbing, you know, as you can imagine. But yeah, it was like families, and there were like hardcore riders in there, of course. But yeah, it was just cool to see like this cycling's just viewed a lot different over there, I feel like. You know,
Yeah.
here there's not I felt like there's a genuine love of cycling in Europe. Like, there were many times where we were riding out in the middle of, you know, on our way to Mont Ventoux or whatever it was. And you'd see like this home in the middle of nowhere, you know, maybe by itself or maybe with 3 other homes in a little, and there'd be bicycles like painted, like a yellow painted bicycle that was part of their yard, you know, that just like yard art, you know.
Right.
Or in the Giro areas, the Giro d'Italia, there were pink bikes painted on people's houses and stuff. And so there's just a little different relationship with a bicycle in Europe that man, I would love to see that happen more over here. But I don't know if we'll ever get there as a society. But you know, that's all the more reason to go to Europe, I guess, you know, to
For sure.
get a taste of that, you know. But to Dave's point, there's a lot of great stuff here.
Oh, yeah.
You guys obviously have seen more of it than most.
Yeah.
But yeah. Well, I feel like we should probably wrap it up. I mean, we kept you guys quite a while. This might be one of our longest podcasts, but
Well,
I
this
feel
is
like
great.
we could talk even more, you know.
And
like
here we are, and here we go, and we're still not done, right? But yeah, I think
Yeah.
Well, guys, I can't thank you enough. It was really nice to get to meet both of you, and I know you've known Dave for a lot longer, but yeah, what a tremendous adventure, and it's really Matt, I think you summed it up so well about, you know, dream big. It's going to be inspirational for a lot of people to hear that message and what you guys have been able to do together. That's really cool. It's a great story about friendship too.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I mean, you feel blessed to have such a dear friend to be able to share that kind of experience with was quite a gift for sure.
Great.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah,
thank
this
you
is a blast,
guys.
guys.
Really.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
thanks everybody for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Take care, guys.
Peace.
Bye-bye.
Peace.